for the past couple of years, I was contributing to some different projects, continuing to work on my PhD full time. I did some DeSci stuff at Gitcoin. I ran our first DeSci round on the new Grant Stack and Allo platform that got released 2 years ago, and that just got me further into the space. I got more interested in infra after that, learning about rollups, understanding what's going on there, and yeah, kind of decided that I wanted to. This is the industry I wanted to work on, whether it was DeSci or not. I find the technology fascinating. The philosophical aspects of it, if you want to call it that, really spoke to me. Like, I'm very Ethereum aligned, I'd say. The Ethereum ecosystem is what first got me, so really what first pulled me into crypto, and I met a lot of really good people who I felt aligned with values wise, and I haven't really had time to explore beyond Ethereum too much, and I'm very happy to be contributing to Ethereum and being part of this ecosystem. So that's my like general crypto story. And honestly, my story with Aligned was I met the team, like the founders, well, it was specifically Fede, about a year ago, like almost exactly 1 year ago, just through friends. And we were having dinner, and then he told me about this new project that they were about to announce that they had been working on within Lambda Class, and that they were going to raise for. And he said, well, if you're interested in joining the team, first read the white paper. We're publishing it next week. If you like this, you should join, basically. So that was pretty much where it started. And then for a couple of months, I was really focusing on the PhD, getting stuff done. And I started full-time with Aligned in June. So that was after the fundraising. And they hired a bunch of people for the ecosystem and growth function. So I was one of those people. And it's been a really busy and fun year, I'd say, since I joined. I guess it's been about 10 months, almost 9 months. Learned a lot, super bullish, super excited. And yeah, and I guess here today, I'll tell you more about Aligned.
Yeah. So you're a scientist working in an ecosystem growth role. Um, maybe that speaks a little bit to like the nature of what Aligned is building. Like it seems to be like a deeply technical product. And maybe for our listeners, you can give like a high level overview of like the different product verticals you have, and yeah, like explain it like I'm five. What is Aligned Layer?
Oh yeah, that's great. And I will just address the first thing you said, which is I think one of the things that drew me to crypto is that we're dealing with very technical stuff and trying to explain it to a really wide variety of different audiences, whether it's users, developers, investors, retail, or institutional. And I think that's one of the things that I've taken from my scientific training, which is telling stories using data and trying to explain complicated stuff to people. It's my favorite part of science. So that's why I was very excited to get this opportunity. So Aligned. So Aligned, our first product, which is already live on mainnet, it's an AVS, which your listeners will be familiar with. We are a proof verification layer for Ethereum. And our whole mission is, I'll explain what that means in a second. Our whole mission is to accelerate Ethereum's roadmap and the adoption of ZK in general. Why? Why is this our mission? So we really believe in Ethereum. We think it's one of the most important projects that humanity is working on collectively. It's super ambitious, and it's something that we think is ultimately important and enables a lot of really important things. ZK is another thing that the people I work with have been working on for a long time through Lambda Class. That's the company we spun out of. It's a venture studio engineering firm, deep tech engineering firm based out of Argentina. And they've been building ZK tech for a lot of projects in a sort of consultant role for years. And they had basically seen that ZK is getting much, much faster. Like proving speeds are like exponentially increasing. Like every month they're doubling. The cost of using ZK, like actual proving cost, is dropping dramatically. There's tons of technology that's just saying ZK is getting faster and better, and it's going to be everywhere. Like ZK is bigger than blockchains,
Mhm.
but it's also really important for blockchains. It's the way that we scale blockchains. It's zero knowledge proofs, zero knowledge cryptography have really found product market fit through scaling Ethereum, ZK rollups. But it's so much more than that. And as just like part of this general trend of verifiable computation, it's going to eat the world, So they saw this and they knew this, and they also realized a bottleneck, which was verification. So
Mhm.
the quick I don't know. I'll see if I can give a ELI 5 kind of explanation after. Like I could, but it's like if you're a
It's okay.
5-year-old who understands Ethereum and ZK and EigenLayer, then I can give a 2-sentence thing. But basically, what we do is we verify proofs and post the results to Ethereum. And the reason why that is important is because with ZK, you have two parties, right? Zero knowledge proof is a type of cryptographic primitive where a prover is able to convince a verifier, so it's two parties, prover, verifier, that convince them of some data that they have, that something was done correctly. Let's say that they can prove that some arbitrary computation was done. And the verifier doesn't need to re-execute that computation. They can just verify the proof generated. So you basically create a mathematical proof that some computation happened. And that's how ZK rollups work, right? It's basically another blockchain. You create a proof that all the state transitions happen properly, post that to Ethereum, and then that's how you can have way more transactions, basically by taking things off chain. The problem with ZK and Ethereum is that the actual verification of proofs is very expensive. And I mean this in terms of gas, computationally expensive. So verifying proofs in Solidity, like within the EVM, is expensive, and you have to do a lot of optimizations. It's ultimately like a limiting factor. Like as ZK gets cheaper and faster to use, like proving gets cheaper and faster, verification on the EVM remains bottleneck. So the question is sort of like, how can we make verification cheaper on Ethereum so that more people can use ZK and settle or verify those proofs on Ethereum? Lots of reasons why you'd want to do that, but what they had figured out, and this really ties into the why EigenLayer part. So what Align does is people send proofs to us, and instead of them sending it to Ethereum and having that proof verified directly in the EVM, proofs are sent to us, and we do the verification. Well, the EigenLayer operators. I feel like I need to back things up a little bit. Basically, we take those proofs, batch them, verify them in Rust or another high-level language instead of in Solidity, and then post that the batch has been correctly verified, the batch of all the proofs has been verified to Ethereum. So then say you want to use that logic in a smart contract downstream. And what I mean by that is, say you need, if a proof is verified, then somebody can mint an NFT, simple example, right? They can still just consume the fact that verification was done correctly from the smart contract on chain, and it works. The difference is we do the verification for 90% like less gas. Now, how we do that is using EigenLayer, right? People listening understand EigenLayer, so I can just say that we are an AVS. Our first product we call Fast Mode, our proof verification layer. It is already live on mainnet. We have, I think, like 56 operators. I can pull up the Explorer or add it to the link after, with 2.7 million ETH restaked behind us. So I think we're 10th by total restaked ETH TVL on EigenLayer. And so what happens is, when I say we verify the proofs, it's actually the EigenLayer operators that are running our AVS that they receive the proofs when there's like a new batch. They very quickly verify them, and the operators can verify thousands of proofs per second. And then they just sign messages with BLS signatures that the batch of proofs was verified, that all the proofs in the batch were verified. We aggregate those BLS signatures and post that aggregated BLS signature on chain. So we basically amortize the cost of verification across all the proofs in a batch. And there's tons of other features I can add in about the different proof systems we support or could support. But really the point is just to make verification cheap, fast, and more scalable, because at most we have some ballpark numbers. Because of the gas limit on Ethereum, you could at most say we're using Groth 16 proofs type of snark as a reference. At most you could have 120 Groth 16 proofs verified in a single block. And that's like if there were no other transactions, like it's just Groth 16 proofs. With Aligned, we can, 10x, 100x that, way more, because we can basically batch a lot of proofs together and just stick that on chain. So I'm happy to talk about the architecture more, or why EigenLayer is so useful here.
Yeah, I'll get into the why Eigen part in a sec, but if I'm just like saying it back to you, Aligned Layers has a network of operators that verifies incoming proofs and posts signature on chain saying that these proofs are verified, so that smart contracts can now use use the proofs in some sort of in whatever logic they want to do without having to actually do the proof on chain. Is this kind of correct?
Exactly. Yeah, you captured it. And of course, you might ask why are like how do we know that the operators that are verifying all these proofs are behaving honestly and actually doing verification correctly? Well, we have economic security through
Mhm.
EigenLayer. So I like to say that we are borrowing security from Ethereum via EigenLayer to ensure that verification happens correctly, but also we're borrowing security from Ethereum to make Ethereum better for
Okay.
ZK ultimately.
Yeah, this is the beauty of like AVS. It lets you give this property of like verifiable trust to like a third party network that is optimized for doing some sort of task properly, like it's optimized for a certain use case versus like generalized database such as Ethereum. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
fits
it's
the
really beautiful.
Mhm.
And like this is before I joined, but there was an original testnet architecture which was using Tendermint consensus, and
Mhm.
then with EigenLayer they realized, wow, we don't need to spin up our own validator set and bootstrap that and get a bunch of capital to back this. We can just borrow security from Ethereum, um, which is it's a really powerful and beautiful idea. Like we're kind of middleware for Ethereum in some ways, and we even like to describe Aligned as like a it's almost like a microservice in Web 2
For sure,
that's backed by economic security from Ethereum.
for sure. Um, Beautiful. So Mm, so like I'm getting into the so what here. Like I guess a few related questions is like who are the end users in this scenario? So I can understand maybe like a smart contract app developer wanting to call like reference proofs, that's one kind of end user, but maybe where's the proofs coming from? Like yes, they're going to align layer to be verified, but what kind of people are you seeing interested in like creating proofs and yeah, submitting things to aligned layer? It seems like there's two kind of end users, but yeah, like you know better than me. So yeah, who are the end users and like what are some of the main use cases you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of use cases, anything with ZK and Ethereum, I'd say, is a use case. And like Aligned is a B2B product. Like we are something for developers to use, and our users are developers building ZK apps that need those proofs verified, or protocols that are generating proofs that need them verified. Um, because really, it's like I didn't get into how expensive it is gas wise. Like it is very expensive gas wise to verify a single proof directly on Ethereum, like minimum 250,000 gas, which right now gas is low, but if we're looking at gas at 10 Gwei, that's like, I don't know, maybe $20 to verify a proof or something. Um, so yeah, I think the users are ultimately protocols, developers, and a lot of our focus lately has been trying to educate people on how to, or what the possibilities are with ZK, because I think we are a bit early. Like adoption is still lagging, but it's getting bigger every day. So we've done one hackathon ourselves and participated in a few, and we're going to be doing a lot more in the future. Because the other thing I'll say is part of the reason we built Aligned, and I'll talk about the other stuff on the roadmap in a bit, is
Mhm.
because we need this to build other products on top of it that
Okay.
would be bottlenecked by verification. So we've said this from the beginning, like we are going to and we are building things on top of Aligned because now that this bottleneck of verification has been solved in a lot of ways, um, we're excited to build cool apps and services on top of it.
Got it. Exciting. Yeah, like ZK has kind of been uh I remember back in 2021 this idea of like ZK rollups and zero knowledge just in its infancy. I think it was quiet a little bit in the bear market, and now it's come back in full swing. Like everyone is talking about it. ZK will eat the world. ZK is the future, and um, like I'm not like a developer, so I'm seeing like noise from guys like Succinct, Risk Zero. There's like ZK Sync, and you guys amongst others. Maybe for like the non-technical, you can give like a general landscape of like what are the different ZK services being offered and how does Aligned Layer plug into that that set of that ecosystem.
Yeah. So that's the thing. ZK is a technology, and it's kind of funny seeing people on Twitter being like, or Discord or wherever saying, "Oh, ZK is dead," and it's because they almost think that ZK is like to them ZK is like ZK Sync or Scroll or maybe a couple of other projects that or Starknet where it's like a layer two ZK rollup. and the token price is down. So people are like, ZK is dead, which is, it's kind of funny from my perspective because it's like technology. It's like saying I don't know, saying encryption is dead or something, right? But I think a lot of people learned about ZK because of ZK rollups, which is something that actually like end users do use. Like you use apps and do transactions on these networks. So I mean, obviously ZK rollups, like I said, I think like all rollups are moving towards being ZK rollups. It's just better technology for a lot of reasons than optimistic rollups. I think a lot that's almost consensus. Like ZK is how we're going to do rollups and how everyone's going to do rollups. So you can imagine like running, something else that we like to say is, or a point that I like to make rather, is that running a ZK rollup today can cost like millions per year in verification costs. And that is something that we don't think is acceptable. So, if a ZK rollup or maybe some kind of like L3 or something, even some ZK chain wanted to verify on Ethereum, it's just economically unfeasible. Like it's not going to happen. But if you verify through Aligned, it then becomes like cheap enough that you can actually launch a lot of rollups or bridges that use ZK or identity apps or whatever you want, really. Like we think the most interesting things that are going to be built using ZK have not even been like thought of yet.
Yeah.
Which is really fun to talk about. I mean, one example that I will talk about, that's one of our partners. So people may have heard of Mina protocol, which is like the OG ZK layer 1 blockchain. So one of the things that we're really excited about is that there has never been a trustless Mina-to-Ethereum bridge. And Lambda Class was trying to build this, and they built this bridge, but it turns out that verifying the Mina proofs, they have their own proof system called Kimchi. Verifying Mina proofs on Ethereum is just like prohibitively expensive. I forget how many million, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 or 15 million gas, something like ridiculous. Like you just can't do it. Like even if you wanted to pay all that gas, it would be like hard to get in a block maybe. So this will be launching soon, but the Mina-to-Ethereum bridge is using Aligned for verification. So like the state and consensus proofs from Mina are getting verified through Aligned, so you can transfer assets and data from Mina to Ethereum. So that's one example of like a cool product that is being built on top. There's also some other partners and cool projects that are doing things like ZKML or ZK coprocessors.
Yes.
And those are also things that like could be prohibitively expensive to actually verify on chain, that we can enable by providing verification services. And there's like, it goes deeper. Like this is I could be here for hours and obviously would be happy to. So I'm trying to think of like the key points to make. Like the way that people make it cheaper to verify proofs on chain in some cases would be to wrap proofs in a different proof system. So Starks, for example, people have heard of like Starknet. They invented Starks. But Stark proofs are really big. So to make them smaller and cheap, and as such, I think they're expensive to verify on Ethereum, people will wrap them into a snark. So this adds latency and costs because you have to create a new proof. You have one proof and you create a new proof from there. So that can be expensive. It adds, again, latency and costs. So that way they end up with a proof that is cheaper to verify in Ethereum. So with Aligned, we can really, in theory, support any verifier because we don't need to write it in Solidity. We can just support the Rust or whatever verifier. So people can just like use Starks directly with us. It's not implemented yet. The proof systems we support are in our docs right now. But yeah, that saves people from having to wrap proofs in the end, and they can just send it to us for verification and get those results on Ethereum.
Got it.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense. Like, yeah, the infra is getting a lot of hype right now, and I guess the next hype wave I hope will be like the first kind of breakthrough use cases that people, like the end users, like really like, wow, how is this possible on chain? And the answer will be ZK. So let's, stay tuned.
Hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think these things will take time, like technology adoption, education. The infra is getting better though, and that's why we're here, right? It's to provide infra so people can build really cool apps and services and products on Ethereum. And Aligned will be in the back end, and we'll just make sure verification is really cheap and fast for them. So
cool.
A lot of the stuff that we are focused on now is some like developer experience improvements. Like we're live on mainnet. You can send us proofs. Talk to us if you want to. but at the same time, we want to make it easier for developers to integrate us, just to make it easier for people to use ZK ultimately.
For sure. It makes sense. And I guess to dive a little bit more into the infra, um, I'm curious how you guys have thought about setting up the AVS. Like, uh, how do you think about how much economic security do you need for this kind of a product? And how are you thinking about like operator quorums? I know there's a design choice regarding like a unique stake versus like total stake. Like, are you trying to, how much slashable security do you need versus just like non-slashable security? Because you mentioned you guys are one of the top AVSs in terms of delegations. So all of these design decisions are important for security, but also important for like the restaker who's trying to get yield. So I know it's like
Yeah.
a whole, it's a whole Pandora's box, but yeah, if you can share anything about the AVS design decisions.
Um, I'll share what I can.
Okay.
I'll be honest, like I'm not going to say in charge of that, but I'm not super involved in that process or haven't been yet. But I can tell you what I can see from my end and share some personal opinions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of stake, and I guess that's like 5 billion USD worth. Like even with current prices, 2.7 million ETH. Yeah, almost. Oh, I guess that'd be like 4 point. No, yeah, it's like 5.4. So we have like $5 billion of like economic security. I'm not sure how much that costs us yet for sure. Again, we're on mainnet, but we are like a little bit ahead of the market and waiting for more people to send proofs. But I think this is kind of happening across all AVSs. Like AVSs aren't generating a lot of revenue yet because the infra exists and now people need to build on top of them, and that takes time, especially user facing apps and services that people will pay transaction fees to use. Um, but I think this is a really interesting question. Like right now, we go by 2/3 quorum.
Okay.
So the operators of 2/3 agree, then it passes. We actually have other tricks. Like basically anything that goes to the operators should be already like good,
Yeah.
because we do like the batcher. Anyone can run a batcher. That's the first. You basically send your proofs to a batcher. That's something that we provide and we host. Anyone can run a batcher themselves, but we actually do a check. We verify the proofs very quickly before even sending it to the operators. But the operators are there to make sure that all the proofs are valid. Um, and right now, I mean, slashing hasn't been implemented, but it's something we definitely will have in the future. And right now, I think if an operator for some reason misbehaves, then they will just be ejected from the permission operator set, and they'll
Mhm.
lose out on the opportunity to collect fees and revenue from running Aligned in the future. Um, Something I will say is like I think for most transactions, this economic security is more than enough. Now, if your proof verification is the thing that $1 million transfer relies on, then saving a little bit of gas maybe doesn't make sense for that application. And for that reason, we're also developing our second product, which is our slow mode or aggregation mode, which I can talk about. And that's not an AVS. That uses like the full security of Ethereum, if you will.
Got it.
And that uses a different technique to verify proofs more cheaply. That's recursive proof aggregation. But it comes with the like added cost and also added latency because we basically have to create proofs of proofs. Like you sort of compress proofs by using proofs.
For sure.
But that one won't use any economic security. And the idea is just to provide developers with more options.
Yeah.
Like with our fast mode AVS, developers can already start using Ethereum today. We're very, very open about the new trust assumptions and the trade-offs there, but we think for most applications, this is actually like more than enough economic security and probably makes sense. And again, just lets more people start building apps that use ZK like right now.
Mhm. Yeah. And as the market matures, all of these kind of numbers will eventually be like fine tuned, like they'll reach the market equilibrium. But right now, as you said, it's like it's about front running a little bit on the supply side and making sure that everything's ready in the case of developers starting to onboard.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess I'll let you speak more about these other products, but first I'm just curious, in the current setup, like what's the revenue model? Like who's the one paying? And yeah.
It's great you asked that because something I wanted to mention was, yeah, right now you can pay for verification in ETH, but we are launching a token. We did our airdrop registration back in December, and we were trying to do our TGE sooner, but things got delayed a little bit. And we have so because we didn't really have enough time for people to use our proof verification layer, we went to mainnet in December, I think after 10 months of development. So we shipped super fast. We really just wanted to bring this to market so people could start using it and so we could start using it. We did this big airdrop where we were trying to reward a lot of early contributors to crypto in general. Some people in Discord got some stuff, but for example, we made a bunch of GitHub repos for things like Bitcoin repos, ZK rollups, different cryptography repos, like anything that sort of made the ecosystem what it is today. Contributors to those repos were eligible for the airdrop and were able to register just based on connecting their GitHub. And then we also did this thing where we wanted to reward the true believers of a lot of other ZK ecosystems within Ethereum. And basically, if you held some amount of tokens from these projects at their all-time low, so like $50 worth of the token at the all-time lowest price. We're talking Scroll, Polygon, ZK Sync, Starknet, Mina,
Eigen.
Eigen as well, yeah. And maybe one more, I have to double check. Then you were eligible, and there's some scale depending on how many of the tokens. Because the idea is like, say you got an airdrop and you held it, you didn't dump it, then you'd be eligible. Which is funny to think because I haven't gotten a lot of airdrops myself, but most of the time that I've gotten airdrops, I've sold them. And this is our way of rewarding these true believers. So after all of our Sybil checks, we had like 250,000 unique addresses.
Wow.
Registered for airdrop. We are doing one of the biggest airdrops, I think, in crypto ever, like 26% of the total token supply.
Wow.
And that we don't have a date for the TGE yet, but hopefully soon. I'm not going to. Yeah, we've been a lot of people in the community are annoyed because they keep asking when TGE, and we keep saying like soon, but it doesn't only depend on us. And they keep asking us for a date. So can't give a date because I don't know, and we don't want to give a prediction that's going to be wrong. But yeah, the reason I said all this about our Align token is because we are going to use the dual staking model in EigenLayer, and also have people be able to pay for verification using Align. And we did release the tokenomics post, which I think we'll have some updates to soon. But we obviously talked about the distribution and vesting schedules and all that, but we have what I think is kind of an interesting model for actual users of Aligned, which is a sort of like subscription model where you can stake Aligned tokens and get unlimited verification for some time period, maybe a month, sort of like pay a monthly subscription. And then at the end of the month, those tokens will be distributed to operators, I think. Don't quote me on those details. I have to double check, but that is roughly the idea. We're thinking about different ways we can make the tokenomics more beneficial long term for the project, because we're here to play long term games. We built this infra to be sustainable and to last a long time, so people can rely on it. And the token has a role to play there. So yeah, there will be the subscription model with the Align token, or you could just pay using the Align token. Operators will be getting Align tokens as payment or ETH. I think we're figuring out some of those details. And yeah, I mean, I think slashing will be interesting. Like we're watching all of that closely and thinking about how to implement that the best way. And this is more of like a EigenLayer thing, which I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on around these whole shared security, because I think I've seen some criticisms around, not criticisms, but commentary that this isn't super capital efficient, and like maybe these AVSs have more stake than they need, and like slashable versus unslashable portions. So I'm actually honestly curious to hear what you think there, because I'm not an expert yet. It's something I've been learning about and following up on, but
Yeah, I have two general thoughts. Like, it's part of the reason why I asked about the revenue. So, I think the original design for restaking is really capital efficient, where it's like one ETH can be rehypothecated to n AVSs, and depending on the number of AVSs it secures, the more yield it can earn, but then the more slashing risk it's susceptible to. But they changed this model due to like a paper from Gauntlet identifying risk for like cascading slashing, where one operator is going to be slashed by AVS A, which will reduce its ETH below the quorum for B. And then, so they changed it to this model where it's like total stake and unique stake. And as like a rehypothecation enjoyer, maybe I was a bit sad, but as someone rooting for like the long-term sustainability of EigenLayer, it seems like the right choice, because now you can only have one ETH slashable by one AVS. So it's like you can only rent, like the landlord can only rent to one tenant, which is like makes sense. And the
Hmm.
total stake number is more of like, from my understanding, like an anti-Sybil check, where it's like, or like a
Hmm.
legit check on the operator. Like, are you legitimate enough to get enough restakers or like LRTs to like say, okay, I'm going to delegate to you. Um,
Yeah.
and how this affects the economics, where it's like, why are people saying it's not capital efficient right now? It's because I view like security as a cost on the balance sheet of a AVS. So I'm gonna only pay as much security as I need. Um, and it's up to me to like underwrite what that number is. But the rest of the revenue
Hmm.
or the profits I enjoy, it's not going to be going to operators and restakers. It will be going to like fund growth or like go to my users or go to my token holders. So um, yeah, I've been trying to like dig deep into like the revenue model and like the revenue breakdown of a lot of these AVSs to see how much yield is going to be actually going to restakers. That affects like LRT yield, which DeFi people
Yeah.
care about, versus like token holders of the AVS or like the users of the AVS. It's like still
Interesting.
a business
Open
problem to
question.
solve for. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a business problem, and it is something that I've definitely discussed internally with the team, and I'm really interested in myself. Like, are there examples of AVSs that we can look at already, and like how they're doing this? I don't know if EigenDA has like enough revenue that you can start to model this or use
Mhm.
it as an example, but
I think only EigenDA. So Liam from EigenExplorer, he's like the co-creator of restaking. You can check like EigenExplorer, and I think for EigenDA, his dashboard has populated some yield numbers. Um, but it's quite low right now, just because there's so much security. And EigenLayer knows this. That's why they're doing like the 4% Eigen to like subsidize all the AVSs, because it's
mhm,
there's no other way they could have done it. They have to bootstrap security first, and then Rome is not built in a day. You have to wait for the AVSs to
yeah,
so it's naturally like this is a growing phase, but
yeah,
um yeah, we're trying to be at the forefront
it's
of like the different business strategies AVSs are going to take.
totally. Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. I mean, I was even on the plane coming back from Denver this year, and like two guys sitting behind me on the plane were talking about EigenLayer, and they're
Mhm.
just like, "Oh yeah, like it's EigenLayer." They're like pivoting to like AI or something. Like I guess like this whole restaking thing didn't really work. Like nobody's getting yield, and I chimed in. I'm like, guys, it's still early. Like like a lot of these AVSs just launched. They need to get their own users
Yeah.
before they can have like fees being paid to operators that can then provide yield to the people who've delegated to them. Like it's going to come. I think a lot of people maybe just put a lot into it to try to get this Eigen airdrop, and maybe their expectations were not aligned with what a realistic outcome.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like I'm not super deep into that side, but that's the impression I've gotten from threads and podcasts and all that.
You've definitely got it. Like that's and like credits to EigenLayer. They invented this called points meta, and they got a lot of TVL more than anybody in the bear market. So
Yeah.
yeah, they did a good job. But
Yeah, yeah.
uh
The other thing I
okay.
wanted to say is super interesting. I remember the cascading slashing risk that Gauntlet published a paper on before EigenLayer. Like I had no idea what EigenLayer was. I think it was a bit before it really was in the consciousness, but people sort of not insiders, but people who were really deep in this already knew about it. And like this is 2 years ago at Zuzalu, and I remember chatting with some folks from Optimism, some like Ethereum core developers, and I forget who exactly. So we're not quoting anyone. We can't quote anyone, but I remember they were telling me like this eigenlayer thing is really interesting, but like this could have systemic risk implications for all of Ethereum. If all of
Mhm.
this ETH is like rehypothecated and now something gets slashed and it just starts casting. They're like, it's an experiment. We'll see. Like, I hope it doesn't completely kill Ethereum by introducing this like new kind of systemic risk. And I was like, this is interesting. I should look into, into
Yeah.
what this is.
And it's like we're seeing many experiments play out as well, because there's like Babylon and Symbiotic and Jito all doing
Mhm.
kind of similar product offering. Like I view it as like they're commodifying trust right now. Like to all the people who say EigenLayer is useless, like now there's net new apps that are possible to inherit this like decentralized trust thing that otherwise couldn't have, and maybe
Yeah.
that would have been prohibitive for them to like get product market fit. So it's
Yeah.
bullish, but we're seeing different permutations of it. Like Symbiotic, I think from my understanding, you can do more like capital efficient, risky slashing strategies depending on the AVS. So we'll see how
Mhm.
it plays out in parallel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, really. Like coming back to Aligned, like this wouldn't have been possible. Without EigenLayer, at least not in this current iteration, right? Like we would need to have a separate blockchain, separate L1 that is that's verifying proofs. But now, if you want to have your proofs verified there and not in Ethereum, well, one is nap on Ethereum, gonna read state from that blockchain. And two, you have this completely new chain to trust.
Yeah.
But if you want to like build on Ethereum and for Ethereum, this is like, it's really beautiful. Like it's super innovative. And I mean, like, I think there's just going to be cooler and cooler stuff built on top of this idea of like programmable trust and like exportable trust. You
Yeah.
know?
And like,
Yeah.
and they're working hard on the branding. Like it's a research focused team, tech focused team, and saying things like verifiable cloud and like what it does sound like a nerd snipe, but it's very hard to convey these concepts because never before have developers had access to just like get a microservice that gives them this thing called
Yep.
decentralized trust. Like it's kind of a new
Yeah. No,
thing. So
it's beautiful. I think that's actually just a general challenge within crypto. Like if crypto marketing, like
yeah.
crypto in general, right? We have like very complicated stuff and we're trying to make or help people understand how they can use it. There's like the retail side or other investors, and you want them to understand the value of what you're building and like why your token is worth them paying attention to. And that's something that we've been trying to focus on a lot. And I won't be able to really reveal too much about our roadmap today. I can mention a couple things, like I mentioned aggregation mode,
Mhm.
but we have a lot of stuff, and we've been spending a lot of time in the past few months researching different next steps and figuring out where to focus. And like part of the reason why it's taking us some time to fully unveil this like updated roadmap, because we delivered the first thing that we said we would, like fast mode. The AVS is live, you can use it. And we always said that we were going to do aggregation mode, and we're looking at how we should do that exactly. So we've been benchmarking ZK VMs recently. You can check out zkbenchmarks.com to see our data there, just open source benchmarking them because we need this for different things. Um, and I haven't even talked about ZK VMs, but I could later if you want. But yeah, a reason, one of the reasons why we haven't like just yeeted a roadmap out is because we want to make sure that the people really understand our plans, and some of that is hard to explain in some ways. So we're like working on the best way to do that, and hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll be able to like do a big presentation announcement. Here's our detailed roadmap. Here's what you can expect from us. Here's like where we're focusing over the next 3, 6, 12 months. But yeah, super dedicated crack team of engineers, and the founders have been working on this stuff for a long time, and I'm really lucky to be learning from them and getting a chance to try to explain all the work we're doing to other people. So yeah.
Yeah. Bullish. The the last thing I want to ask, you kind of alluded to it, but like what's next? So I know you can't share much, but you did share that the fast mode is live in production, that you're making an aggregation mode where it's like you're not relying on a AVS this time. You're going to be able to inherit Ethereum's security to do verifications. Um, is there anything else that you want to add here for the listeners, or should they just keep tuned for the updated roadmap?
Yeah, so that's one thing. I mean, I can talk about fast mode. Like again, it's live, but there are some optimizations and improvements that we want to make. We think it can be cheaper and faster, and easier for developers to use. So that's one thing for sure. Um, Slow mode, or well, aggregation mode, I think is a better term, but slow mode,
Mhm.
that is to give developers more options. Just like fast mode gives developers options, this is like something that is like more secure but more expensive and slower. That can be used for a lot of things like ZK rollups. Um, or in some ways you could think of fast mode providing fast finality and slow mode being like higher security finality, slower finality. And we could imagine a lot of apps maybe wanting to do both and sort of use the fast mode guarantees for like a quick confirmation, and then like final confirmation coming a bit later from aggregation mode. Um, so that's one thing. I beyond that, I normally, like, I don't know, if you asked me this a month ago, I probably would have just like talked about a bunch of ideas we're working on. But now that we're getting close to having something, I'm gonna hold my tongue, which
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better at. But we have published some. I mean, if people really want to dig, there's some stuff that we put out on our blog a while back. You can check out blog.alignlayer.com, and I think there's a post from a couple months ago where we talk about a longer term roadmap, and that might give you an idea of some of the things that we are going to be announcing soon. You can also look at some of the stuff that Fede, one of our founders, he tweets a lot.
Yeah.
Um, you know, there's clues in the things he tweets about.
Understood.
But yeah, but in terms of I'd say stay tuned, and we'll have a lot more I don't know, podcasts and blog posts and stuff like that, explaining things in detail and how the community can get involved as well. We do plan on doing a lot more hackathons where people use ZK to build cool stuff. Um, we have a foundation set up now, which will be organizing a lot of those sorts of things. So yeah, and yeah, another thing is, I mean, this is kind of for this is longer term, but in November, we're going to be doing a bunch of stuff for Dev Connect, which is happening in Buenos Aires, which is where our engineering team and our founders are based. So definitely expect a bunch of stuff from us in Argentina this fall.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Buenos Aires. Um, cool. Well, yeah. How can the community follow you as well as AlignedLayer?
Yeah, so Twitter is probably the best place to see what I'm up to. My handle is at BJ_Dyakov. My first name is actually Boris Jose. So yeah, BJ_Dyakov on Twitter. I'm tagged in stuff on Aligned and I retweet their stuff all the time. But yeah, I'm also, I'm active in our Discord and our Telegram. I'd say if you're interested in building on Aligned, like we have a Telegram group, which we are very responsive to, especially if it's like technical stuff. And if you're trying to understand something in our docs or want to try something on the testnet. The testnet is back on Haleski after the Haleski Pectra outage. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's back. So people can use that again. We've been making sure the operators are running the testnet again. I didn't say this before, but we still maintain the testnet version on Haleski just for development purposes. Yeah, like if you want to build, reach out. I'm the ecosystem lead, and that includes DevRel, BD, marketing,
Yeah.
comms, everything. So if I can't answer your question, I'll point you to somebody on the engineering side who can. Um, and yeah, I think Twitter is probably where we follow most of our stuff. We've been doing things like every Friday we do this ZK industry news update, which I've started recording videos of. So we're posting those on Twitter. Those go out by email, and yeah, like we're friendly. We're all out here ready to chat. So don't be shy if any of this excited you or if you want to build on us.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for the conversation. I learned a lot. ZK, AlignedLayer, EigenLayer, economics. So yeah, it was a good combo. Thanks, Boris.
Ethan, thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Excited to keep reading newsletter, which is what I saw. So guys, check out the restaking newsletter.
Yeah.
I saw that, and then when I saw the call for people to come do a pod, I was like, oh yeah, these guys are good. Let's do it.
Appreciate
But
it.
yeah.
Yeah.